Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Susan Jones, and in case you are new here, I am a first grade teacher up in Massachusetts who loves sharing tips, ideas, and strategies for K through 2 teachers just like you. I have been on YouTube for quite a while now. In the last couple years, as I've gone back into the classroom, I've really just tried to share what I'm doing as a current relevant first grade teacher who takes all of the latest and greatest research and tries to apply it into her classroom. So that is usually what my videos look like. But before I went back into the classroom, when I was getting my master's and when I was subbing for a while and staying home with my boys, I was sharing more videos like this one right here, where I pick a topic and I just kind of do a little deep dive on it. So if there is something that you want to know that's relevant to K through 2 teaching, take a quick search on my channel because I have tons of videos for math, science, reading, lots and lots of reading instruction types of videos to give you a little deep dive and a little more information about the topic. So be sure to search over there. If for some reason I don't have what you're looking for, let me know down in the comments and I would love to make a video about it. Or maybe I made a video, years ago and haven't updated it so I can give you a more relevant video. So you always just let me know and I'll be happy to share with you. Diving into today's video, I actually just wanted to do a quick little Q&A. A few weeks ago over on my Instagram, I went ahead and asked for what are you wondering about me? It could be related to school, and most of the Q&As that I wrote down are school related, but there are some fun ones kind of mixed in there. And then some of you wrote emails as well. So I picked about 10 or 12 different questions that I'm going to sit here and answer today. Now, some of these questions might bring about some more questions, so feel free to drop them down in the comments. And again, I might be able to make a second video towards the end of summer, just addressing any of those questions for you. So if you're ready for this video, let's go ahead and give it a thumbs up and let's dive in. Question number 1 to start us off was a fun one, and it's what are you doing this summer? Now, not only did people want to know kind of how I'm going to relax and recharge and reset, but they also wanted to know what I'm doing to kind of keep up with current practice, and if I do anything or take any classes to kind of keep my mind in that education realm. So the answer to that is I definitely do a little bit of both. I think because of my, second job of being here on YouTube, I'm never really taking a full summer off. In fact, summer is usually one of my busiest seasons, especially with the opening of the SJT Clubs. And real quick, for those of you that don't know, the SJT Clubs are basically memberships that I have where you gain access to all of my literacy, writing, and math activities, many of which are not available on TPT and are kind of made specifically for the clubs. So more information on that is down in the comments. This is what they look like. So that being said, I definitely don't fully take the summer off and just hang by the beach, although I do plenty of that anyway. That's just not exactly my style. So I definitely am a work hard, play hard type of person, and I very much throughout the summer plan out plenty of times where I'm completely unplugged and enjoying every second of summer with my family, with my boys, and just having a ball. But when that is not planned out, I am working. So what that looks like for me is, first, we already did our first little trip up to Bar Harbor. Here's just a quick little reel. I share some of this over on Instagram. I'm not the best at posting on Instagram. I do try to get better. And this year coming up, I want to get better at posting. I started this at the end of last year, but I posted daily, or once a week I would do it, but a daily, what life looks like in my classroom with just tips, ideas, and also just a natural, this is what I'm doing. This is when I went to school. This is how I'm prepping things. Whatever. I'm trying to do that more often in addition to just the weekly YouTube videos. So if you like that, let me know because it's kind of fun to make. Where was I going with this? Oh, Bar Harbor. So we went up to Bar Harbor. I live in Massachusetts, and over the summer, I really try to do a lot of local vacations. We're lucky enough that summertime, we have Cape Cod, we have Vermont, we have New Hampshire, we have Maine. New England during the summer is just absolutely beautiful. So during my February and April vacations throughout the year, that is usually when I go away. So last year I went to Las Vegas during February. If you followed me for a while, you know I used to teach there. My sister-in-law lives there, so we love to go to Vegas. And it's so cold here that Vegas, it's a lot nicer. And then usually in April, we might go on a cruise, we might go to Disney World. We try to do our traveling vacations during the school year. And then during the summer, a lot of beach and New England fun. In terms of staying in the teaching realm, what I always like to do is I definitely have been taking classes. I already got my master's degree, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But through my district, they often offer a bunch of courses that you can take for credits to kind of move up on your professional charts. So I'm taking 2 1-credit courses that are offered through my district. One is a book study, and the book study is called Anxious Kids, Anxious Parents. And not only is this super helpful, I'm about halfway done, but not only is this super helpful for me as a parent, but it's also super helpful for me as a teacher. Just learning tons of tricks and strategies that we can use to stop the worry cycle and raise courageous and independent children. So I'm halfway through this, loving this so far. The way we do it is we read a couple chapters each week, and then we kind of just have like a discussion, a message board, and we respond to each other. And it's all teachers within my district, so this has been great. The other 1-credit course that I took is on Canva. Kind of a tricky one because I already knew a lot about Canva, but I could still take the course. So that was very simple for me. These are about like 15-hour courses. That's why they're only 1 credit. They're not meant to take forever. So that one I already flew through and made a whole new project. It looks like this right here. I just made some slides to align with my math curriculum for the beginning of the year. That was my final project. And I did learn some new tips, so I will say that. And then I'm also taking a 3-credit course through Learner's Edge, or it used to be called Learner's Edge. Now I think it's called the Teaching Channel. This is what the website looks like. And we did this with a group of teachers from my school. And it's all about kind of that work-life balance and remaining unstressed in a very stressful job. So this is the book that we read. And then I haven't started this yet, so I can't give you much information about the class and how I'm liking it. But this is the text, and then there'll be, you know, videos to watch, message boards, and papers, like actual papers, like a college-ish course that I have to write. So yeah, that is what I am doing. I'm not doing too much literacy or math-based learning this year. I feel like I focused on that a lot for years and years and years, and I'm always just kind of like reading little things here and there about that anyway. But those are the 3 classes I'm taking. Question 2 was, do you use brain breaks? And if you do, what kinds do you like? And when do you use them? So quick answer is yes, I absolutely do use brain breaks throughout the day. I have some that are kind of planned in and scheduled that I'll explain to you in a minute. And then others that sometimes when you need it, you need it. And towards the end of the school year, we needed them a lot. Now I did have 2 scheduled in brain breaks every single day, and those were purposely planned just for the scheduling of the day and when I found that my kids needed them the most. The first was after our phonics block. So after phonics, we would almost always do a movement type break, and Danny Go, this channel right here, was far and away my students' favorite. They have tons of Danny Go videos. They're all dancing, they're up, they're moving. They loved those. The other time that my students would always do a brain break was after specials, which was in the afternoon. So after specials was more of a, we have like our last 45 minutes of learning at the end of the day, and this was more of a focused one. So it would not be an up and moving type of brain break. It would be much more relaxing. So some of those relaxing ones that I enjoy are these kind of breathing type videos where my students would come in because they might have just had PE or music or something when they're moving around anyway. So I wanted them to just kind of settle, collect their thoughts, and get ready to learn. So some of these, I'll put 3 here, breathing videos we would do. And then another one that my students loved and sometimes we would do instead of Danny Go, depending on their, you know, maybe if they were super hyper during phonics in the morning and I need them to bring it back down. I shared this in a video towards the end of the year, but I loved these. These are called like musical tracing maps or something like that. A colleague of mine had found them and she tried them with her students and they loved them, but it's just classical music. And along with the beat of the music, they have to kind of match the like strokes with their finger, or they can do it on their desk. You could give them something sensory to do it with. But these were like hyper focused, got my students ready to focus in on learning and would be a little bit calmer than some of the Danny Go videos. So those are my 2 planned ones, and those ones are often like already linked in the slides. They're ready and geared up to go during those 2 times of the day. And just for reference, phonics is in the morning. So my students really start school around like 8:45. They come in at 8:30, but learning starts at 8:45. So that first brain break is already at 9:30 because we go right into literacy and it's like strong, focused, and then I give them a quick brain break before writing. The other one is at the, like I said, at the very end of the day before our last 45 minutes. So it's like after the first 45 minutes of learning and before the last 45 minutes of learning. In terms of brain breaks that I just need on the fly when I can tell my students need them, I have these brain break cards right here. I've had them forever, and I actually have them on a link, and they are on a magnet on my whiteboard. And they have different types of brain breaks. So there are movement ones, there are mindfulness ones. There are 6 different categories that I can choose from based on what my students need. And so during those, I'll just grab the ring, and they only take, sometimes less than a minute. And it's just a quick little recharge for them. So yes, I do use brain breaks. Next question was, what did you get your master's in, and do you have any regrets about that? So I graduated from college back in 2010. So a long, long time ago, 15 years ago. With my bachelor's, and I always knew I wanted to get my master's. If you teach up in Massachusetts, you have about 5 years to teach without your master's degree, and then you are supposed to either be working towards it or get your master's. That's a Massachusetts law. However, I started teaching in Las Vegas, Nevada, and that was not a thing at the time. And I had moved, and I was just trying to get used to teaching, professional life, being a young adult. So I did not go directly to school. Then fast forward, I had moved back home, got married, had kids, and was like, when am I going to get my master's? So I did graduate from Boston University in 2022. I took about 2 years and did all of my classes online, and I chose to get my master's in curriculum and instruction. And I went back and forth for years. In fact, I had actually applied to a different program and got in for literacy instruction, because that has always been a passion of mine. And then at the very last minute, I chose to withdraw and not go to that program because I knew I wanted to head back into the classroom. So because of that, I wanted to do a more, wide range, variety of topics instead of just hyper-focusing on literacy. So I did choose curriculum and instruction. In hindsight, I'm happy that I did it. I don't have any regrets, no, I'll say that simply. But I do wish that when I was doing that, I feel like when I was doing my curriculum and instruction program at the time, there were really only like maybe 4 or 5 other classes that I could have taken to also get my reading specialist license. But then in Massachusetts, to get your reading specialist, you also have to do a big practicum, which takes about a year, or maybe half a year, I'm not sure, I don't remember. And at the time, that just didn't seem feasible. So I wish I had wrapped it all into one, is what I'm saying, or even just kind of did them all at the same time. Got my curriculum instruction, master's, and then got a additional certificate that was my reading certificate. I wish I had done that. So now I would have options to be a reading specialist in the future if I wanted to, without needing to go back to school. So that would be my one and only regret. I do not regret my diploma over there. That's what I keep looking at. Right there on the wall next to my YouTube plaque. I don't regret that at all. It was one of the best things I ever did. And in fact, I loved having my children there because I got, I did all of that with Parker's support, with my kids' support, with them just being babies and toddling all around me while I was taking my classes online. So they got to actually come to my graduation and watch me walk across the stage and cheer me on, which was so, so special. So I don't regret that at all. I just wish I had just kept powering through. I mean, I was definitely done. I was like done and so happy to be over it. But I wish I had powered through a little bit more for just one more year to get that specialist license. So that's where I am now. I wouldn't be surprised at all if in the next 5 years I am back at school, still while teaching probably, but taking classes to get my reading specialist license. So be on the lookout. All right, next question was, what do you wish you knew as a first-year teacher? So much. I mean, like I said, I graduated in 2010, so that was 15 years ago, and I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, living in Las Vegas, and just ready to, go out there and save the world. I remember during the interview for that teaching job, they asked me one word to describe myself, and I said eager. And that could not have been more true. I was just eager to learn, to get in there, to start teaching. I was so excited. So I think that eagerness you should, still have. But as a first-year teacher, in hindsight, I wish I just knew how hard it really is. Teaching is not easy. I mean, obviously, you know that. I think teachers know that going into it, but you don't know until you know, right? You don't know until you know. So it's really hard. And I think you need to do a couple things about that. You need to pace yourself. so you don't just completely burn out. And, you know, back 15 years ago, there were teaching blogs, but there wasn't, you know, Instagram and TikTok and YouTube videos. And speaking from someone who does this, right? Like, I literally do this. And I hope that you know when watching these videos that you do not need to do things like I do them. You don't need to share things on Instagram. You don't need to share things on YouTube. I enjoy doing that and find it helpful, but I would never want people to think that they have to do all of this stuff. And that's why I do think, maybe I'm just talking myself up here, but I really don't go overboard. I feel like with my activities, I don't do big, huge room transformations. I don't do like super themey things. And I don't mean that in any sort of like shady way. You do you, but I try to make things as simple and effective as I can for both myself and my students. So not only do I think it's a little easier for students while still keeping them engaged, but also for me, because I don't need to burn out like that. So really trying to avoid that kind of burnout trap. I think especially with that comparison and trying to have to, you know, do the latest and greatest and most fun thing that you see on TikTok or Instagram. Trying to avoid that, I think, is going to be huge. On top of that, I know like people talk about working hours and don't stay at school after late. I feel like everybody has to do their own thing. Some teachers like staying at school after. It makes them feel more prepared so they don't have to do things at home. I think if you're in your first or second year of teaching, you're gonna have to spend some time outside of contract hours figuring things out for yourself. If you don't want to, that's fine and that's great. I felt more comfortable spending time outside of school to allow me to teach better when I was with my students. That's just how I felt and that's how I did it. But again, that's going to be kind of up to you. So trying to avoid that burnout in any way you can is going to be helpful. The other thing, because teaching is so hard, you have to find your people. I've been so lucky where every single school I've worked on, I have made great friends with my team and with my colleagues that teach the same grade level as me. I know every school is different. I know some schools there's only like 2 teachers on a team and maybe you don't have that much in common, but try to find your people to talk with, to complain with when you need to. Try not to complain all the time, but you're gonna need to complain. You're gonna need to vent. Do that with them. You're gonna need to talk about your successes, your challenges. You're gonna need to just have fun and talk about the weekend. Whatever you want to do, whatever you're kind of searching for or seeking, find your people to make the job more fun for you. And the last thing I wanna share about being a first-year teacher is just make sure you are enjoying your students. I keep saying how hard it is the first year, and that's true, and you're going to make so many mistakes and you're gonna wanna change so many things year to year. But if you're not actually enjoying your students and making connections with them and just having fun with them, then really it's going to be hard for you. So while you're kind of in the thick of it, that's hard to, you know, remind yourself of, but laugh with your kids, have fun with your kids. Like, enjoy them and have them enjoy you. Show them that you're not just a teacher, but you're a person. You're probably funny, you know, I'm hilarious. Let them see that side of you and just have fun. So that's what I have. All right, next question is, do you give homework to your students? And if so, what does it look like? Quick answer to that is no, I do not. My district does not give homework to students. I have worked in districts that have given homework, some that don't have any homework policy, leave it up to your teachers. Either way, in K through 2, I teach in a specific K through 2 school. We do not assign homework generally to our students. Now, I do believe the kindergarten team, they have like a monthly grid of kind of just like fun activities, and it's mostly, there's definitely some like literacy and math involved, but it's mostly a bridge to help parents kind of talk about education and get used to it with their students, especially because, you know, it's their first year in school. But like in terms of like nightly homework, weekly homework, we do not give any unless requested. So of course, if a parent is requesting extra support, or if I feel like a student really needs some extra support from home, I will speak to that parent directly. And in terms of what I would give students then, it's very highly dependent on what their kid needs help with. So typically in first grade, it's gonna be phonics or math, right? So phonics related, I would just find some activities for students to decode and encode words with whatever skill they're working on. And I have tons of activities that I've made over the years on TPT that I would just print out and use for that. If I'm looking for specific heart words, I would print out the ones that are from last year we used Foundation, so I would print out those from the Fun Hub and, you know, give those to students to practice or give those to parents. In terms of math, same thing. I would just go to our curriculum, find out what chapter we're on or where that student, you know, needs extra support in, and I would find some extra practice sheets for them to do. So pretty simple, but I mean, I've had classes, my class sizes have been very small the last couple of years, 18 and 16. And really of those, only 1 or 2 students have requested, or I should say 1 or 2 parents have requested extra work for their kids to do. So yeah. I will say if you are giving homework, the only thing I really try to think about is the purpose of it. I definitely make all of my homework review based. I will never send anything home that students have not been explicitly taught in class. So they should be able to do it within a certain time period. If they can't, I also make that clear to parents. I'm like, hey, this worksheet should take about 5 minutes. If it's taking way longer and if your student is really struggling, please don't do all of it. Let me know. I don't need there to be a negative, you know, connotation, a negative feeling around this. This should not be like pulling teeth. And again, it should be review things. So either I would need to lower the homework for that child in terms of what skills they're working on, or I would need to find something different, differentiate in some sort of way. So just kind of think about that as they go forward. Next question was parent communication. How do you communicate with parents and how often? So my quick answer to that is I actually communicate with parents a lot. It's something I pride myself on, and as a parent, it's something that I thoroughly enjoyed. And so we have 2 main ways that we do that for communication. First and foremost, our school district uses Seesaw at the K through 2 level, and I'm very familiar with Seesaw. Not only do we do activities in it, but Seesaw is where I send tons of pictures home for parents. I love sending pictures of what my students are doing, sometimes just like free play, fun pictures, sometimes out at recess, but a lot of times our academic activities as well. A quick little picture gives parents a kind of a stepping off point to ask their student what happened at school today. Or, you know, these kids are little, they're 6 and 7 years old. You ask them, what did you do today? And they're like, nothing. Or they bring up, you know, a fight that they had at recess when really they've done a bajillion small, little, wonderful, and fun things throughout the day. So by sharing the pictures, you can be like, oh, look at this block creation you created in the morning. Who is this that you're playing with? What are you writing about here? Whatever. It just gives them a cute little picture. And that's what I would always do when my boys were going through school. I'd be like, hey, look at this picture your teacher sent me. Tell me who this is. Tell me what you're doing here. Where is this in your classroom? You can just ask questions. So I do send a ton of pictures home through Seesaw. Really, I'd say each student gets at least like 2 or 3 pictures a week of something that they're doing in class. Or like I said, at recess, which is also fun. In terms of like academic parent communication, I send home a weekly newsletter. It looks like this right here, and it's Keeping Up with the Jones Kids. And in that, I go through, I write a whole big email every single week, and the email just talks about what we are learning in phonics, writing, and math. And then social studies and science, I'll go over like the genre topic. But then in each of those categories, I break down what exactly we're learning. And I also, at the end of each one, give a question or a review skill for parents to do with their kids to see how their kids are doing. Here's a zoomed in example of our weekly newsletter. So you can see that in phonics, I tell students we just started a unit where we are reading and writing words with 5 sounds. This was in April. I explain that this can be tricky for students. They need to listen and isolate each sound in the word. And then I give some examples. Have your students close their eyes and tap out the sounds in these words. Crust, blimp, skips. They should notice that each word has 5 distinct sounds. If they can tap out the sounds, have students try to read these words and then write them. So I give, so right there you can see I give like a clear example of what we're learning, what types of words that means, and some examples of things we are doing. Now the same goes with math. I said we are deep into our numbers unit into 120. We're identifying ordering, comparing larger numbers, and I explain that most students are doing great with this skill. And then I say to see how your child is doing, ask your student to identify how many hundreds, tens, and ones are in these following numbers. So again, just kind of giving parents an actionable step that they can take to see how their kid is doing at this time. This also gives them a clear example, like if their kid could not tap out those 5 sounds, they would already be aware, most likely through me, or if it could give them, if they didn't already know that, or if their child is struggling in that way, it gives them some awareness of that and some examples of activities to do with them. And then in writing for this one, in this email, it says we just finished our poetry books today. I just say make sure to have your child read you the poems because we had just finished up that unit. And then of course at the bottom, I'm always putting any important dates or other little reminders. So every single Friday, I type out an email that looks just like that and I send it on home to parents. Now, in terms of behavior and things like that, I will communicate in whichever way I feel is appropriate for the conversation, or in whichever way kind of parents have expressed interest to me in discussing things. If something happened at school that's really, not that big of a deal, but I definitely want to mention it, I might send a quick little seesaw message and just say, hey, something happened today I want you to be aware of, or an email. If it's something that is, going to be a lot longer, or I feel like could be taken out of context or not really understood without a quick phone call, I'll say, hey, something happened at school today I just want you to be aware of. If you could give me a call at this time or give me a time that works, and I'll just hop on a quick phone call. So really I communicate with parents in many different ways. So yeah, Seesaw, weekly newsletter, and then of course, emails, Seesaw, parent call, whichever we need for any kind of trickier little things throughout the year. All right, this next question came off of my last video. My last video was this right here, and it was the 5 W's of small group literacy instruction. I kind of did a deep dive into what my small group literacy instruction looks like, the who, what, where, when, and why of it all, and exactly what it looked like from my classroom from last year. But one of the questions I got often, so I think my answer to this is actually going to be, I think, either next week or the week after's video. I'm going to make a specific video because the question was, what do you do with your high flyers? Does it look the same as everything I mentioned in that video? And the answer is yes and no. For the short answer that I'll explain here is usually around January is where I kind of switch up focusing so heavily on the decodables, because if I have a group of students that have already cracked the code, we move into more authentic texts. And then even with my on-grade level students, as the year progresses, especially as we get to like March and April, I also do some other activities with them that are not weaning them off decodables, but in a way, weaning them off decodables and getting them into more authentic practice and reading and text like that too. So my short answer is no, it doesn't always look the same as everything I explained in that video. And my long answer is I will make a video to share that with you. So if you're interested in that, let me know down below, but I already kind of have a little outline because I was responding to a couple comments and I was like, oh, I could speak a lot more about this and provide more details that I think a video might help with. So be on the lookout for that. All right, a couple more questions. The next one is, how and when do you teach social studies and science? What a great question. I have mentioned numerous times that obviously social studies and science gets the short end of the stick, specifically in the younger grades. I do feel like slightly better knowing that as my elementary children get older and older, not only my own children, but my school children, they do spend a lot more time on social studies and science topics. But really with a 6-hour day and so many new laws and time, constraints on teaching literacy and math, there's not much time. That is the fact of the matter. It is something I wish I could change, but it just doesn't look like it's changing anytime soon. So that being said, how do I get the most bang for my buck? We teach social studies and science for the last, 25 minutes of the day, which includes our pack up and go home time. So it's really like 20 minutes. The way we do it in first grade with my team is we will look at our scope and sequence of the skills we need to teach throughout the year, and then we teach them in blocks. We'll do our social studies community helpers unit at the beginning of the year for 3 to 4 weeks, however long the pace and guide tells us to do it. And then we will go into a science unit. Maybe we're learning all about weather and space or whatever. Of course, I can't think of any of the science topics we talk about right now, which should tell you something. But that's how we do it. So it'll be like 3-4 weeks at a time where we are focusing on one of them. That gives us a lot more opportunity to continue each lesson and kind of build upon it day to day, instead of doing like, I'm going to teach about social studies today and science tomorrow. That just doesn't usually work. And for social studies, we actually really use Karen Jones' Little Thinkers units. She has them over on TPT. The slideshows are great. The questions are great. The workbook's great. It's just very simple and easy to follow, and my students get it as we teach them. In terms of science, we do have, I think it's called Inspire Science. Not the biggest fan. I think there's probably a lot more in there that I need to dive deeper into. but really I do most of my science lessons through Generation Genius and Mystery Science, which are both websites here that my district does buy for us. The lessons are so engaging, and since I only have 25 minutes each day, I will typically, choose a lesson that's within our unit that we're teaching about. The first day we will watch the video on the lesson, and then the second day we will do the activity. And so one lesson takes 2 days to complete, which is fine. And yeah, my students love it. They are highly engaged. Generation Genius and Mystery Science are two of my absolute favorites for that. But yeah, I wish we had more time. That's that. This question I thought was a great one. It's how and when do you integrate your products or TPT products with your curriculum? I do teach at a school that uses a strong curriculum in reading and in math. In writing, we kind of do our own thing, although next year we will be doing HMH into reading, and they have a writing component. And we do definitely follow the curriculum. I created foundations aligned slides that go directly with the curriculum and do not kind of veer from that at all. But I still have plenty of opportunities to kind of add in fun little activities. So I was going to explain a little bit about when I do that for kind of each block. So first, let's talk about phonics. During the whole group instruction block, which is really from 8:50 to 9:30, where we're doing phonemic awareness and phonics instruction, I'm not really deviating from the script at all. I'm not deviating from the curriculum. Now, definitely when I've created my aligned slides, I have a couple little things in there, like Foundations doesn't use the heart word method, for example. So of course I use the heart word method, and I kind of place that in there. They don't use, not dictation. They don't use word building as much as I would like, so I added a little bit more in there, but I'm very closely sticking to the curriculum. In terms of when I would use TPT products or something I've created for phonics, that is always going to come during the WIN station. So during WIN, I have a whole video of what WIN looks like here. All the activities I use during WIN are TPT or, whether it's myself or somebody else, TPT created products, right? They are not from the curriculum, and they're usually very specific and skill-based for what I need my students to work on in reading, writing, math, whatever. So that's an easy time that I use that. Also during phonics, at the end of the day, when we do our literacy centers, if there is some sort of phonics activity that my students are doing, whether it's task cards, whether it's a paper and pencil worksheet activity, whatever it is, that's usually from TPT. So that's kind of when I use it for phonics. Every once in a while, we will have some time at the end of the lesson where maybe I have an extra 5 or so minutes, and I will do a practice activity from TPT if we have that time. I'd say that only happens about once a week or so. Usually I'm using that whole time to teach the curriculum. In math, there is much more flexibility. Now, we definitely use the curriculum. We use Math in Focus. And so I teach the full curriculum, but we have a 60-minute math block. And typically we will start with a math warm-up, which I am actually usually pulling from my own math warm-ups. I have a bajillion of them. They look like this right here. And I always pick 1 or 2 to start with for our lesson. So that's already a TPT thing that I'm throwing in there. And then we will do our learning, our engaging, all the different parts of the curriculum. Then we often go off into either partner activity or some sort of independent activity. And oftentimes, usually the kind of partner activity, instead of using the one from the book, I will use a partner activity that I have created. Usually because it's easier and simpler, if I'm being entirely honest. My games are usually like a 1-page printed out activity instead of having to create all these index cards or gather all these materials, and they teach the same skill. I'm always making sure that whatever skill the curriculum is wanting us to teach or have students practice, I am doing that same skill in my groups with students or when they're going off to practice. So it's still very closely aligned, but sometimes I'll pick a different game if I just think it's easier for students and easier for myself, and still teaches the same skill. Also, for those independent practice pages, I don't know if you use Math in Focus, but if you do, you'll know that that workbook is this thick, and that workbook sometimes has really tricky language questions that they ask them, and don't just ask them directly if they can add, or subtract. So pretty much like every other time, I might do like a basic, here are, 20 addition problems within 10 to go ahead and solve as your last activity, right? Instead of having them go in the workbook and do these pages, they can't read themselves and it's not independent anyway. So I'll kind of switch that up. So math has a lot more opportunities for me to mix in some TPT stuff. And then for writing this year, I have really been integrating basically all of my slides. We will definitely use the curriculum's pacing guide for teaching writing, and I'll use some of those lessons. But then I've been using these units right here. They're my teaching slides. They're already in the SJT Writing Club and everything. And this has been my saving grace for just much more explicit instruction. We are diving into HMH Into Reading. They have version 3 coming out that we are going to be using next year, and it was supposed to kind of beef up the writing portion. So we'll see if that happens. I mentioned this year that we have some switches to our writing schedule and curriculum. So I think writing this year is going to be one big trial. And throughout the trial, I'm going to find ways to make it work that I will share with you. So yeah, plenty of opportunities. I integrate TPT products or, you know, my own stuff every single day without taking anything away from the curriculum, if that makes sense. If you still have questions, let me know down below. All right, the last question is another one I love, and that is, how do you and your team plan together? Or do you plan together? Do you plan separately? How does that work? So my last 2 years, we had 6 teachers on our first grade team, and this year coming up, we'll have 5 just due to class sizes and enrollment and everything. But our team works very closely together. So every single week on Wednesdays during our planning time, we will meet together and we have our common planning. So during this time is when we are looking over our pacing guide. What are we working on right now? What units are we going into? What lessons, activities are we thinking we're gonna want to use, and so on. Here is a quick example of what our planning document kind of looks like, and it is a shared document we have in our Google Drive. This looks like it's for a week in April. You can see on Monday, there's kind of a green area. That is when we had Birds of Prey, which was just a presentation that was coming in for us. So anything big, we kind of go over right away and we mark it off on the calendar. It's something that is relevant to all of us on the team. And then we have our basic schedule. So we have morning meeting, Haggerty. We write down what week we're on so everybody knows. Foundations, we're on unit 10. You can see that there's something linked there. Those are the slides that I made to kind of go along with the units. And it even says underneath it, we're on week 3, day 1. Now that is like the general, this is where most people are. Some people might be a day ahead. Some people, usually it's like we're a day or 2 behind. And as we talk each week, if we find that 1 or 2 of us are like, you know, a couple days behind, we build in some review days so everybody can catch up, especially before we head on to a new unit. So if somebody on the team was, you know, 3 days behind and we were gonna assess on Friday, we would give them extra time, or we would just figure out, they're like, okay, I'm gonna do this and this during this block to catch up. So we just try to make sure we're all kind of on the same page, and then we link the slides that we are using. Now, in terms of our lessons, I've shared my daily lessons a million times if you watched any of my videos during the school year. I use the slides, but sometimes I might add in an extra slide, or I'll edit a slide. And we do that, so we have like a master one, a master, you know, here's all the foundation slides. And that is another reason I like daily slides, because I create my own and I add in anything extra or special that I might be doing. And then at the bottom, I'll scroll down here so you can see at the very bottom of this, you will see that I go ahead and link my slides each day. So as the other teachers on my team are planning, they can go ahead and check out what mine are doing or what mine looks like or what I might have added. So they can take, they can pull, they can change it up however they want. So we teach the same thing each day, but it has a little bit of our own spice, a little bit of our own flair, and all of our slides look slightly different. So it's fun. And we just work so well cohesively together. So just to take another quick look at this, you can see we did the same thing for math. We were on chapter 12, and this is graphing. One of our team members found this fun mustache graph project that she loves doing with her kids, so she linked it right here for us. And then underneath are the chapter slides that we can follow along. Of course, during WIN, everybody's doing their own thing, so we don't really need to link anything there. Same with literacy centers, we're all doing our own thing there. And then same for reading and writing. We'll put what unit we're working on. If anybody finds any fun activities, we kind of drop them into that doc. So and we do this on Wednesday, so then, you know, Thursday, Friday, or the weekend, whenever somebody wants to really plan for themselves and print out whatever copies they need, they have one big working doc that they can go back to and print out whatever they need. So it's fun because we work so well together, and you could pretty much walk down the hallway and see everybody's going to be teaching, you know, the same unit. It might not be the exact same lesson, but many of us will probably be on the same exact lesson each day, and it'll always look slightly different. Like the game I choose for math might be different than a game, you know, my neighbor is using. Again, it'll probably be around the same skill, but it might be slightly different based on what they already have for materials, what they already have prepped, or if they're like, the game Susan chose is too difficult or too easy for my kids, they'll pick the one that works for them, and vice versa. So we work so well together. It is something I very, very, very much wanted when I came back to teaching. I've just always worked really well with teammates. I love learning. Obviously, here I am on YouTube. I love learning ideas from other teachers, and so I very much wanted that to be part of my daily and weekly schedule, is just bouncing ideas off one another, and getting to learn and hear wonderful things that are happening all around the school. So yeah, we do plan together, and that is kind of what it looks like. All right, I don't remember how many questions that was, maybe around 10 or so, but those were some of my most frequently asked questions when I put out that little poll. If you have other questions you do want to know about that I did not answer, or if any of these questions, you know, made you think of more questions, let me know them down in the comments. If I get enough, I will make a second video, or I'll just respond to your question down below and see if I can answer it. So as always, I do hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're having a wonderful summer. It's kind of crazy because this video will come out on July 13th, which for me is like still the beginning of summer. But I know for so many of you around the country, you are either starting in late July or you are starting in early August, which is wild, but that's just the way it is. You also get out in May. So good luck to you. I hope you are having fun still and enjoying whatever summer you have left. And yeah, if you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up so I know. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and click that bell. That way you're notified of every new video. See you in the next one. Bye.